This time of year, we receive a lot of images on social media and other ways from folks asking us to help them estimate a buck's antler score. To tell you the truth, I'm not that good at it. I try to really focus on how old they are, and is the antler something I'd like to have at home? After that, I'm probably taking a shot if I agree he's a certain age. But I have a friend, Richard Hale, that knows a lot about estimating and actually what bucks score, because Richard is the chair of Boone and Crockett's record committee. And he's a great hunter and been scoring racks forever. Richard, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Grant. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, and Richard and I have hunted together and talked a lot about in the field. I'm talking boots in the ground experience. So I wanted Richard to share some of the tips he's developed through a career of hunting and serving with Boone and Crockett on helping us estimate a buck score before we pull the trigger.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, also by Reconics, Trophy Rock, Eagle Seed, Nikon, Winchester, Lacrosse Footwear, Blood Sport Arrows, Flatwood Natives, Morel Targets, Non-Typical Wildlife Solutions, Hooks Custom Calls, Montana Decoy, Summit Tree Stands, Drake Non-Typical Clothing, Howe's Lubricator, Genesis No-Till Drill, Yamaha, Fourth Arrow, Scent Crusher, Antler Extreme, iScope, Bone View, Mossy Oak Properties of Heartland, Code Blue, Decode, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
Reflecting and dark antlers do make every deer look larger. They just show up. Before sharing Richard's techniques for estimating a buck score in the field, I asked him to explain the Boone and Crockett scoring system.
For a Boone and Crockett score, the first measurement that's taken is the length of the beam, which is measured from the outside edge of the main beam in line with the eye, around the back, and out to the point. Okay. That's one of the components of the score. Another measurement that everybody's aware of is the inside spread, although it's often confused and it's not the greatest spread. It's the inside spread of the main beams.
Yep.
So when we do that, that's about...
Let's do this.
Your inside spread...
So we're talking in here to in here.
Correct. And your inside spread is on average around 10% of your score.
40% of a buck's overall score on average is time length. That's where all the money is.
If you've got 3 points going up, you're looking at a 10 point. If you got 4 points going up, you're looking at a 12 point.
A great tip Richard shared about 10 pointers, 3 points on a side, is if there's a difference between that G2 and G3 and a big step down to G4, it's going to hurt the overall score. But if a 10 pointer carries that G4 tine way out there and it sticks up high, that buck's probably going to score fairly well.
The mass, which everybody likes, including me, the mass of these beams typically is about 20% of the score on a buck.
Again, there's 4 measurements, 1 measurement, 2 measurement, 3 measurements, halfway in between here, 4 measurements.
Now another thing is you'll see some tremendous trophy animals that have thick points, and I love those thick points. It has to be a sign of good nutrition. That's a healthy animal that's forming that. Unfortunately, the Boone and Crockett system does not in any way quantify that.
So Richard, this was a hunt I was on a couple years ago in Kentucky, and we're gonna play it and you can see what I saw live. I mean, the camera was right over my shoulder.
This deer presents really well. It's a nice looking buck. I noticed that first off, it has...
Let's roll the footage here. Let's roll it so you're going real time.
Okay, so here's the deer. You're seeing a compact set of antlers. They're not real wide, not really, it strikes you as a smaller deer. And then you start noticing that it's got some point length and pretty nice looking deer.
Yeah, and you taught us time length is a big factor.
And this deer certainly has it. So my first number I'm going to throw out there, I'm going to say 138, just under 140 inches.
Okay.
And then, you know, I start thinking, I'm a little off on this guy because he's got tall twos, he's got good brows, not exceptional, he's got really nice beams. You know, I may be 5-7 points short on it, maybe 145 inch deer. Both the 2 and the 3, have curvature, and anytime you go around a curve, you're gaining length.
Yeah, well, so like this right here.
Everything about those points is going to measure better than your eye is telling you, because your eye doesn't pick up all that unless you've really focused on it. So when you see a deer with straight points, they'll disappoint you in length. When you see a deer with a curved point or even a double, some of them will curve in and then back out, those deer have long points. And with the curved beam, this deer is probably going to be a 145-inch deer.
You notice that I actually passed this deer, certainly not because I would have been proud to have those antlers on my wall. That's a great set of antlers for me. But his body didn't appear to be 4 years old. He's sleek, his back is not sagging, his belly's not sagging. We're not talking about aging right now, but I estimated this deer to be 3 years old. When a deer turns away, it looks bigger there. It just gained 10 inches on me there.
Right. Well, part of it, you're seeing that curvature.
Right. It's really not bigger, folks, but deer going away from you almost always look bigger, and that gets some deer shot that shouldn't be shot. All right, so Richard, here's a different setup. This is actually at my place here at the Proving Grounds. One of my guests was hunting, and of course, you get a situation like this, maybe it's wet, looks kind of wet and damp, you don't know there's a deer coming, and it steps out all at once. I mean, we're talking now
Right.
a few seconds to work. So what's going through your mind off the bat? Let's just go ahead and start this live, Daniel, and Richard, you tell us what's going through your mind. I see something you've taught us off the bat. I'll go before you start. I see a big stair step here. I can't see the brow very good. Richard's taught us to look at the brow. You tell me if I'm getting this right.
That's correct.
I can't see the brow. Pretty decent G2, decent G3. I'm going to say the G2 probably scores more, or is a little bit longer, just
Correct.
because of the curvature of the beam.
It's an inch and a half longer.
Yeah, because the beam is going down, even though it looked the same height here. But my G4 is one of those tiny points, inch or two.
Grant, that's correct, and those things jump out at me. Don't see the brows. Usually that's a bad sign at this angle. We should see something if they were adequate length to score well. So we got a lot of negative factors on this deer just right off.
And I also want to stress again, we're not saying shoot, don't shoot. This is all about helping you estimate the score of a buck in a hunting situation.
Exactly. It's no issue at all whether you shoot this deer or not. I'm just trying to help you evaluate the deer to make your own decision.
Okay, so let's run this real time and go through it.
Okay.
It's just stepped out, here we go.
So, Grant, it seems like each thing against this deer works against it. You've got tiny brows, almost non-existent fore on one side, no fore on the other side. You've got light mass. This is not a deer that's going to score well.
So your quick estimate on this thing. He's getting out of shot range real quick.
I'm thinking possibly 100 inches without doing any math.
Yeah,
Just bang 100 inch.
110 inch deer.
Right. I'd say no more than 100.
Well, it's on my place, so I'm going to give him 10.
Well, I told,
I'm just teasing.
I told Grant that. I said, when a deer's on your property, you always have to deduct 10 inches because of your inherent enthusiasm.
Richard, this was a hunt I was actually on here at my property, so again, I'm biased. This drops off really steep, so I did not hear this deer coming. He's actually out of bow range right now, and he just stepped out in the field. So you're getting some of the first glances just like I really did when this occurred.
Well, that's a neat situation, Grant. I see two things here off the bat, really three, that just strike you right off. One is you've got 2 points going up. You're looking at an 8 point. So the second thing I notice is that these beams come high off the head. I mean, that's remarkable. You know, most of them will turn out to the sides, Grant, but these beams are coming high off the head. So that's telling you this deer is going to fool you a little bit. Then you look up the beam just a little bit, and you're seeing for a deer of this size, very good brow tines. They've got to be 4 inches. They might be 4.5. So the deer's going to score a little better than you think. Probably 115-inch deer.
Okay, let's roll it and see what we do now that we're rolling.
Okay.
This is what I'm seeing. I see that and I go, ooh, look at that tine length.
Right, you got a great 2, that bumps it a little bit. You know, this deer may be getting close to 120. Mass is ordinary for a rack of this size.
So what are you giving it on mass?
14.
14. 14 on the side. So we would double that, it'd be 28 inches.
A lot of symmetry, not a lot of spread, probably 12 inches inside.
Yep.
Boy, look at that 2 now. That jumps out at you.
Yep.
The deer has no odd, unusual points, no breakage. Just a beautiful deer.
Yep.
Now, here's a great picture, Grant, because this shows how tall beams will fool you. The beams come so high off the head that you look up at the top of the 2 and it's so far over the nose that you're thinking, this is a giant deer.
Right.
But as you go through your system, you realize that this is a young deer It's got a beautiful set of antlers. They're not going to score over 120 inches.
Yeah. So I think that's a critical point. This buck is what we call a high rack buck. My generic term is a high rack buck.
Right.
And there's only, again, 8 scoreable points on here. It just didn't add up to much. This is nowhere close, folks. When I look at this right off the bat, I'm nowhere thinking 140, 150, 160. That's not even in that world.
No.
Yeah. But great deer and got a lot of room to grow.
I want to emphasize, you want to look at this brow as soon as you get the chance, because it's the first point that goes away when there's brush, there's a bad light, there's a bad angle on the view.
Twisting around, can't see it.
Right. When you get a chance to look at that brow, you want to look at it. And then once you've done that, move on.
Richard, here's a different situation, and I live in the Ozark Mountains. I have some food plots, but there's no ag fields around. A lot of guys hunt in places like I do, and we see deer in timber like this. I mean, here's the buck. A lot of people probably didn't pick it up from home, looking at the monitor here, but we can't see a whole lot. We don't get that perfect view. So I want to play this real time, and you just start sharing with me what's going on.
Okay, Grant. Thank
Okay,
you.
so here we go.
The first thing I would notice is you're probably going to hear this deer coming in these dry leaves. So I'm evaluating the deer before I can see it. Is it dragging its feet? An old buck will make more noise walking through the leaves when it's on alert. Is it when its feet hit the ground? Does it sound like a big deer? And then you start seeing it. If you can't see the antlers, start looking at the body. You gather whatever information is presenting itself to you, because it may be all you're going to get. So you've got a missing brow. You really don't have a G3 on the right beam, on the deer's right beam, what we're seeing on the left side. You've got a non-typical point coming out of the base of the G2. Nothing really extraordinary about this deer. It's if you had to put a number to this deer, you're probably looking at 90-inch deer.
Yeah. And I want to share this one because a lot of guys in the heat of the battle, coming through timber, branches, sticks, everything in the way, see this long tine, say, "Ooh, that's a good deer."
But a hunt like that, Grant, can be just as fun as a hunt for a giant deer too. You get an arrow through there and get it in the right spot, and that deer goes 30 yards and piles up, and you've had a great hunt.
Richard, you've been in my shop. I got a whole bunch of those out there, right?
Right.
And I can retell and relive all those moments. My family enjoyed the venison. So again, not knocking a deer, but we get all these questions about what's this buck score, and I write folks back and I'll say, 110, whatever. And they go, "Oh no, it's 150-inch deer." Well, I don't hurt your feelings, folks, but there's some math to this, and Richard's here to tell us his formula of how that goes together. Richard, this was a great hunt. This was actually my daughter, Raleigh. I've taught my kids, we're all worried about age, and then we'll figure out the score later, but let's look, a lot of hunters want to know the score, so as we run this real time, because things happen quick here, I want you to again share with us what's going through your mind.
First thing I would say here is it's just great deer. Mature buck, big antlers. That's just the first thing pops in your mind.
Yep.
And then you're seeing it's got 3 points up. Now it's going away, so as you note it, when a deer's going away, it's going to look a little bigger. Right now you're saying 150-inch deer. But then you put a little math to it, and you realize it's a little short out on the fours. Brows look good. My feeling right now is that buck's going to get away anyway, because he's moving right along and nobody's shooting. The buck has dark antlers. Dark antlers always show up better. They will make you overjudge them a little bit. So you have to say that deer's a little less than 150. I got good 2s, not exceptional. Good 3s, not exceptional. Nice spread. Spread's probably 17 inches inside. Average mass. This is just a great deer. To put a number to it at this point right now, I'm going to say it's 140 plus.
Okay.
And it's every bit of it.
So let's let this play out here. Raleigh finally gets him stopped, boom, done. Hugging, celebrating, all that. I actually did put a tape on this deer, and I'm not saying I'm 100% accurate because I'm not a certified scorer, but I come up with like 142. You called this a low 140, so your field estimate was spot on.
Well, thank you, and what a beautiful deer. Interesting thing about brow tines is they can be measured from the front or the back. So you measure them over the longest way. So sometimes you'll see a deer that scores best coming up the front of one beam, and it will always, of course, score longest over the curve. But with this one, it kind of has a double curve, and I don't know. I'm going to think the front. But what you know is that this is a nice brow. It's a very good brow for a good scoring deer. It's approximately 5 inches, which is the norm on a 140 to 160 inch deer.
Richard, this is a little cheating for you because I was hunting with you on your farm, but this was a stranger deer to me. I didn't see this deer ahead of time. I don't think you showed me trail camera pictures or anything. So I'm in a tree, but I want you to walk through and we start playing this, what's going through your mind.
Okay.
All right, so this deer steps out. I'm a stranger now at a guest property. I don't know this deer, so what am I looking at, Richard?
Well, when he was turned sideways, you notice tall points right off.
Yep.
Beams come high off the head. It's 5 point on one side, but 4 typical on the other. So that's going to hurt the score.
Right.
As he turns toward you, you notice that the brows are good, not exceptionally long. One of them appears to be split on the right, and the tall points strike you again, and the spread of it's going to be just under 16 inches.
Okay.
So those are the things I noticed. And then now, as the deer's turning his head there, look at that G2 on the left. That G2 is probably over 12 inches long, but not 13. Matched pretty closely on the other side. This is just a real nice looking deer. The 4 is a little weak. It's going to keep it from scoring real well, and it's non-existent on the other side. Little odd point going off the left G2. Great deer. I'm going to say that, again, that deer is going to come in there low 140s. And I don't remember, I'm sure we probably scored it at the time, but low 140s kind of deer. The beams aren't exceptional. Also, it's a mature buck. And being a mature buck, certainly something in that size range a person would want to consider harvesting.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Several years ago since Richard allowed me to have this hunt, but I believe it was like 149, kind of high 140, gross score.
That could have been, I may have been a little low on it.
It had a kicker also coming off that you didn't dress, so we gained 2 or 3 inches off that one side there.
Right.
When you start going through the math, and Richard's gives some great points, okay, average beams, 20, start adding if they're exceptional,
right.
Taking off if they're less, spread, 15, unless it's really exceptional or really narrow. Mass, we're gonna call an average good buck
17, 18 inches.
17 inch on a side, so we double that, we're 36, 37 inches, somewhere in there, okay? You start doing the math, and all of a sudden, they start coming down a little bit.
That's right, it's a numerical thing.
Richard, years ago, there was a buck on our property that was a clean 12-pointer. And I had watched him all summer through trail camera pictures, video, and I just knew this was a good deer. And sure enough, in October, I saw steer moving through the woods, and I grunted. And of course, he's shed out velvet now, and he comes up, and I make a great shot, and he piles up, and I get down there. My heart just sunk because I had memories of velvet score basically in my head, and when I got the real antlers in my hand. Based on his experience, Richard shared that when the velvet is removed off antlers, the score can decrease by 10 to 20%. Summertime bucks, when that velvet's really full and looking big, guys, we can easily overestimate the score by 20%. Richard, this has been great because you've taught me a lot, and I've been doing this a long time. I'm sure you've helped everyone at home, but let's summarize, but just again, your overall quick field judging tips so they can use this in their situation because they're not seeing it on a video. They can't play it back 5 times like we can.
Right.
They're making a 5-second decision. So we're looking at a deer, kind of what's the first thing you're thinking?
I'm looking at a big mature deer with what I consider a large set of antlers. You don't see anything wrong with it. So you throw out a number. You're going to say 160 inch deer. Then the next thing I would look at, I would try to get a little numerical about it to see if this actually is a really good scoring deer. The first thing I notice is the spread. Spread's just ordinary for a big deer, 18 and a half inches inside. Nothing exceptional about the beams, not exceptionally short or long, just a great looking deer. Right. So next I'm going to look at mass, 20% of the score, and I'm going to call that average mass for a 160 inch deer. Yep. So we're going to call it 18 inches per side.
Seconds are ticking away. What's the next thing you're looking at here?
Grant, the next thing I'm looking at is the beams. And again, the beams are just exactly what you want to see on a 160-inch deer. They come high off the head, they go out, they turn back in a little bit at the tips. They don't strike you as extraordinarily long, but they're solid. So you're just going to say 25 inches.
And that's per side, per beam.
Correct, yeah.
Yep.
The brow on the deer's left antler is short. There's just no question about it. It's 2 to 3 inches. It really needs to be close to 6 inches to get a big score out of that deer.
Yeah.
Then we get to the fours, and you're thinking those fours are good. They're going to offset the brows a little bit because they're close to 7 inches.
Yep. And you like anything over 6 inches on the fours?
5 to 6 inches is going to put you in that 160-inch range. So all in all, I just stick with that number. You know, it's a 160-inch deer, give or take 2 inches. And really a beautiful big deer.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And so this is just a great example. You know, if you're hunting 150, 160-inch deer, this has actually ended up being 160 and a little change. This is what you want to see. You want to see that spread Richard talked about, that mass, and really importantly, that tine length. Richard, you've spent a lifetime hunting deer just like I have, and you've really specialized in antler score, your contributions to Boone and Crockett Club and whatnot. So you actually donated a chapter to this book. You contributed a chapter just really highlighting in greater detail than what we shared today, all your field estimating tips.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's also some other methods outlined in there in 1 or 2 other chapters, which have merit to their own.
Yeah.
So just because this is how I do it doesn't mean it's the only way or even the best way.
Yeah. So I would do what I do. If you're into this stuff, go to Boone and Crockett's website, get a copy of this book, and really study it before you get in the field this fall. Richard, it's hard to do, but you've changed my opinion on a few things today. So thanks for being patient with me and giving me time. And I really look forward to hunting with you again this fall.
Great. Thank you, Grant. Enjoyed it.
Hey, if you'd like to visit in person about food plots, habitat management, estimating a buck's age or score, I'll be at the Springfield Bass Pro Store August 19th from 10 to 5. Probably spend most of my time in the hunting department, and I look forward to visiting with you there. Daniel and I are blessed to have an elk hunt scheduled about a month and a half from now, and I'm super excited and preparing for that hunt. But it's just as important that I slow down every day and enjoy creation and take time and listen to what the Creator is saying to me. I hope you do the same. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.